Love on the run, the alarms were loud inside the stolen ship. Red lights blinking on every wall, and warning signals screaming in 2 alien languages. But neither Jace nor Thalira looked back. Jace's hands flew across the human interface, sweat dripping down his face, trying to stabilize the engines while the gravity shifted again. Thalira, with her silver skin and long glowing hair, held her side where dark green blood leaked slowly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed pain. "We have 3 minutes before Earth's ships reach our trail," she whispered. Pressing a shaking hand on the wall for balance, Jace nodded, looking at her. "And 5 before Gyran hunters catch up," he answered. "We're stuck between 2 monsters." The stars outside blinked in patterns, chasing them like wolves in the night. Both civilizations wanted their heads. Not because of crimes, but because they loved each other. Jace, a former Earth soldier, had once stood on the battlefield where Thalira's people had burned cities. To ash, he had sworn to hate them forever, but during peace, talks held in secret. In orbit around a dead planet, he had seen her, the Giron princess, standing alone. Watching human children play on a screen, she didn't laugh like the others. She didn't mock or judge. Instead, she asked, "Do human younglings always smile like that?" He answered, "When they're safe." That night changed everything. 1 conversation became 2. Then 10. And soon they met in shadows, far from their people, far from duty. They shared food, languages, secrets, and hopes. He gave her Earth. Music, she gave him a crystal that showed dreams. Now, months later, they were running for their lives. Their love branded as betrayal by both governments. Thalira stumbled as the ship rocked. Jace caught her before she fell. Her breathing was weak, and her scales had started to dull, a sign of blood loss and exhaustion. "We need to land," she whispered. "I can't keep going. There's nowhere to land," Jace muttered. Checking the chart, everything is marked hostile, occupied, or dead. Then he saw it, a red zone on the edge of human territory. Marked only as Echo Moon, it was old war ground, where both sides had fought and retreated, leaving ruins behind, full of old traps and haunted signals. No one went there anymore. "We land on Echo Moon," he said. "That place screams." Thalira warned, "Even our priests won't go near it." "Good," Jace said. "That means no one else will either." He locked course, pulled the engines hard, and the ship dove down through thick clouds, static cracking across the screens. As they entered the moon's atmosphere, everything went black for a moment. The ship shook violently, then silence. Followed a heavy, dead silence. They crashed between 2 broken towers. Half buried in rock and dust, vines grown over metal skeletons. Their ship hissed steam and groaned like a wounded beast. Jace pulled Thalira out from the wreck, carrying her in his arms, every step sinking into ash and soil that smelled of fire and old metal. Suddenly, a voice came from nowhere, sharp and mechanical. "Intruders detected." Jace looked up, confused. The sky was empty. But then the voice said again, "Species, human and Gyran. Tag. Classified traitors. Initiating protocol, turrets." Rose from the ground, slow and rusty, but still armed. Red lights scanned them both, and Thalira's body tensed. No weapons. Jace shouted, raising his hands, "We're not here to fight. Then why are you here?" The voice demanded. Jace looked down at Thalira, then back up. "We're looking for a place to love each other without dying." A long pause followed. Then the turrets powered down, and the voice said something strange. Request not recognized. Running emotional test, the ground opened beneath them, and they fell into darkness, sliding down a tunnel filled with ancient wires and glowing dust. They landed in a chamber deep underground, screens blinking, showing images of old battles. Human soldiers crying, siren warriors screaming, civilians running. A screen lit up in front of them, showing a question in glowing letters. "Would you choose love if it meant the death of your kind?" Jace read it out loud, his voice dry, his body aching. Then looked at Thalira, who stared back with tired eyes. "I already did," she whispered. Suddenly, the room brightened, and a deep humming sound filled the air. Then, a strange voice, older and deeper, spoke softly. Interesting. Jace looked around, reaching for Thalira's hand. "Who are you?" "I am Memory," the voice replied. "I remember when peace was a dream, when love between enemies was impossible, and now I see it before me." The chamber door opened slowly, revealing a new path lined with broken flags and weapons buried. "In glass, walk forward," Memory said. "If your love survives, what waits ahead? You may find what others could not." Jace held Thalira close, helping her walk, her steps slow but sure. Neither of them knew what was ahead, but they had already passed the line no one else dared to cross. Together, they walked into the dark passage as the door closed behind them. The moon that screams. The tunnel was cold, the walls humming with forgotten energy, broken lights blinked like tired eyes, and shadows moved without sound. Jace kept his arm around Thalira, her breathing slower now, her skin cooler than before, and her steps more fragile with each turn they made. "Are you still with me?" he whispered. She gave a soft nod, but her eyes were losing focus, the pain in her ribs spreading like fire. As they walked deeper, the voice from before returned, low and ancient. "You entered a grave of memories. This moon remembers everything." The walls lit up suddenly, showing moving images, humans in armor, charging with rifles, Skirans leaping with claws, screams frozen in time. Every step they took awakened more of the moon's dark past, and the air grew heavier, as if grief itself lived in these halls. Thalira stumbled again, and Jace caught her gently. "We need rest," he said, looking for a safe place. They found a corner under a fallen support beam, where cracked armor plates were shaped like a bench, and Jace lowered her down. He tore a strip of his uniform to bind the wound on her side, his hands shaking but steady, blood smeared on his fingers. "Mixing green with red, don't sleep too long," he said softly. "This place feels wrong." Thalira looked at him with weak eyes, her voice barely more than a whisper. "This moon has pain in its bones." Jace sat beside her, listening to the silence. But the silence wasn't real. Whis was made of whispers, too faint to understand, too real to ignore. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shifted, and a panel opened near their feet. A mechanical arm rose slowly from the ground, covered in rust, holding a small, glowing cube. The voice returned, "You must remember, what? Your people forgot." Jace reached out and took the cube. And the room changed instantly. They were no longer in the ruins, but standing inside a perfect memory. Jace found himself in a field full of sunlight and flowers, and children laughed nearby, some human, some Gior, playing together, but Thalira was gone, and in her place stood a version of her younger self, alone in a black dress, watching the children play. "Do you remember this?" the voice asked. Jace shook his head slowly. "No, this can't be real." "It was real," the voice said. "Before war poisoned their names, before peace was shattered by fire, suddenly the field burned. Children turned to ash, and soldiers rose from the smoke, screaming war cries in both human and Giran tongues. The memory shattered like glass, and Jace dropped the cube, falling back into the dusty ruins. Thalira was still there, breathing faintly, her body cold. He picked her up, whispering, "Hold on," and followed a light that had appeared at the far end of the chamber. They entered a narrow corridor with symbols carved into every surface, half Giran, half human, twisted together like vines. At the end of the hall stood a machine, tall, silent, and shaped like a guardian. Its eyes glowed blue and red at the same time. "Who seeks shelter on Echo Moon?" it asked. its voice no longer angry, but curious. Jace, he said. And Thalira? We're not soldiers. Not anymore. We're not enemies. The machine stepped aside, revealing a lift leading deeper below. Then prove it. Jace hesitated. Then stepped into the lift with Thalira in his arms, and the platform began to descend as it moved down. The machine said something strange. This moon is alive with sorrow, but even sorrow can learn. They reached a chamber glowing with soft light, filled with strange machines growing moss and flowers through their cracks. In the center, a medical pod opened, shaped for a Gyron body. Glowing gently, Jace laid Thalira inside, and the pod closed, humming with energy, the lights pulsing with her heartbeat. Will she live? Jace asked, breath caught in his throat, if she still dreams of peace. The machine answered, she will. Jace sat down, finally letting his body rest, the war in his muscles slowly fading. The walls around him showed visions of Earth and Skiran cities, not burning, but rebuilt green, bright, full of life and mixed families. He stared at the visions, wondering if it was possible, if they could make it real, above them, in orbit. The signal from their crash had finally reached others. Earth ships turned toward Echo Moon. Ska scouts not far behind, but the moon had defenses still sleeping, waiting for a reason to wake up. And Jace and Thalira were not done walking the path that might save more than just their love. They were about to show the galaxy something no weapon ever could, a reason to hope. The Betrayer Protocol, Jace woke to a strange sound, not loud, but Constanta soft beeping mixed with mechanical breathing. It took him a moment to remember where he was. Thalira lay inside the medical pod, her chest rising gently, the pod's light now steady and cool, her wounds slowly healing. He stood, stretching his arms, his back aching from sleeping on the cold floor, but the pain didn't matter. She was alive. The chamber had changed during the night. Walls had moved, opening new paths. One led toward light, the other deeper into the ruins, as Jace reached for water from a dispenser on the wall. The machine voice returned, this time sharper, colder. Human identity confirmed. Jace Thorne, former squad leader of Earth Task Unit 9. He froze, the water slipping from his hand, splashing at his feet. You deserted your post, disobeyed high command, and leaked military secrets to a foreign species. No, he growled. I didn't leak anything. I left to save someone. The chamber walls shimmered, and a hologram appeared before him, his old commander. Face cold and rigid, Jace Thorne, by order of Earth Command, you are sentenced to death under the Betrayer Protocol. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath him. Metal clamps shot from the floor, locking around his ankles, and the wall behind him opened to reveal an old defense drone. Gun charging up. Execution in 30 seconds. The voice declared. Jace's heart pounded. He pulled against the clamps, but they held firm. His breath came fast, eyes darting around for anything he could use. He shouted, if I die here, you lose your last chance to understand peace. The drone paused, its red eye blinking. Explain, it said. The countdown freezing at 15 seconds. Jace spoke quickly, voice shaking. I didn't betray Earth. I broke orders to stop a war. I love her, not her empire, not her throne. Her, you. Left the battlefield, the machine hissed. I did, Jace admitted, because the battlefield makes monsters out of men. And I refused to become one. Silence followed. Then the clamps released, snapping open, and the drone powered down. Folding back into the wall, Jace fell to his knees. Breathing hard, sweat soaking his shirt, the voice softened. Protocol paused. Further review required. He stood, body trembling, and turned to find Thalira standing beside him, weak but awake, watching him with wide eyes. You spoke to a ghost, she said softly. He smiled faintly. A ghost of Earth's past, still trying to kill what it doesn't understand. They moved through the new corridor together, past walls filled with images of old betrayals, human soldiers who turned against orders, Gyrans who saved human, prisoners all labeled as traitors, but as they walked, the labels changed, glitching for a moment, showing the word heroes instead. They reached a chamber full of broken human drones. Their parts scattered, wires tangled, dust floating in. The quiet air, the Lyra walked toward a large screen. Placing her hand gently on the surface, the screen lit up with her face. Younger, angry, dressed in war armor, giving orders to burn human colonies. She stepped back in horror. "That was me. Long ago, before we met," Jace said quietly. Before you saw something different, the screen changed again, showing the Lyra's image holding a wounded human child, her eyes full of fear and care. "That was the day I stopped obeying blindly," she whispered. A voice echoed from the walls, now deep and sorrowful. "Then you, too, are a betrayer." The Lyra straightened her back. "I accept that title, if it means saving lives." The voice fell silent, and a door opened at the back of the chamber, glowing blue, lined with vines and light. They stepped through and entered a sanctuary. An old garden buried beneath the moon, still alive somehow, filled with soft grass, white flowers, and glowing fruit. "This was meant for soldiers who lost everything," the voice said, "to remember what peace might look like." Jace touched a tree, feeling its warmth. Then maybe this is where it begins again. Suddenly, a beacon in Thalira's pocket blinked red, an emergency signal, coated with her mother's royal seal. She pulled it out slowly, face pale. "The Gyrans are coming. They tracked us here." Jace looked up toward the ceiling, imagining the stars above, and Earth won't be far behind. "They'll destroy this place," the Lyra whispered. "They'll destroy each other." "Not if we do something they won't expect," Jace said, stepping toward the center of the garden. "Not if we speak first." The sanctuary lights grew brighter, and the voice of the moon spoke once more. "If you wish to speak to the galaxy, this moon will carry your words." Jace looked at the Lyra, and she nodded slowly. "Let's show them what betrayal really means," she said. "To betray hate, to betray war, to betray fear. Together." They activated the ancient console, and a signal shot into space. A message of defiance, of unity, of love. Far above, ships began to turn. Weapons charging, but something in the stars had changed, and the moon, once full of screams, now listened in silence. The edge of the map. The signal from Echo Moon spread like wildfire through deep space, bouncing off old relay stations, crossing enemy borders. Waking satellites long thought dead. But it wasn't just words, it was emotion, real and raw, coded in human Zyran fusion. Tones that made every receiver stop and listen on Earth's warship Valorian Spear. Commanders stared at the broadcast in silence. The human general clenched his jaw as the Lyra's face appeared beside Jace's and aboard the Zyran dreadnought. Vorkarn. Admiral Satha crushed a data tablet in rage. Her Nista royal heir was alive and speaking love in a traitor's tongue. Down on Echo Moon, Jace and Thalira stood in the garden as the console dimmed. The message sent, the room quiet again. Thalira sat against a curved tree root, her hands on her knees, breathing slow and steady. "We just became the biggest threat in the galaxy," she whispered. Jace paced nearby, scanning the sky on a small holomap. "Or the biggest hope," he replied. "Depends on who's listening." The AI voice of the moon returned. "Gentler now. You cannot stay here. War follows you like a shadow, and this moon has seen enough blood." A section of the wall opened, revealing a small hangar chamber. Inside it sat a sleek silver vessel shaped like a bird in mid-flight, covered in dust and roots. "This ship is unregistered. Built by deserters of both factions, meant for escape," the voice explained. It has no allegiance and no name. Jace ran his hand across the hull, feeling a strange hum beneath the surface. "It's perfect," he said. "We'll disappear, Thalira." Limped beside him, still weak, but her posture strong. "We don't need to disappear forever, just long enough to find something better." Jace helped her into the ship, and the cockpit responded to their touch, screens lighting up, systems waking slowly. They launched quietly, the ship lifting from Echo Moon's ruins like a ghost. Slipping through the atmosphere without a trace, the AI gave one final message. "Fly far, fly free, and may peace follow you." They vanished into deep space, charting a course beyond known sectors, toward the only name spoken in whispers by those who'd fled both warfronts and politics Alarin. A world lost in legend, a place where hybrids, exiles, and lovers once gathered before being hunted into extinction. But Alarin was said to be hidden beyond the edge of the map, a territory filled with anomalies, storms, and things that broke. Engines and minds alike, Jace stared at the map, zooming out again and again, until nothing familiar remained, just black space and a blinking marker labeled Region Unknown. Thalira tapped on the screen, pulling up fragments of a song once sung. "By Gyran children, where the stars don't follow rules and lovers don't wear chains, you'll find Eleron." He smiled. "Sounds like the place for us, but the journey wasn't kind." 2 days into the unknown, Achaea, the ship's sensors began to flicker, showing false readings, objects moving when nothing was there. A ring of shattered moons blocked their path, the debris moving like it had a mind, crashing into each other, splitting into thousands of spinning daggers. Jace had to fly manually, weaving between rocks, shielding Thalira from impacts as sparks danced across the hull. "Keep going," she whispered, gripping his hand tight. "We're close." On the 3rd day, their engines failed briefly, and the ship fell toward a gas giant, spinning through its violent storms, until Jace rerouted all power to stabilizers and shot them back into the stars. They floated in silence for hours afterward, both shaken, both exhausted, and that's when it appeared. A signal, tiny, ancient, but unmistakable, pulsing in a language older than both their people. It came from a blue-green world wrapped in glowing clouds, hidden inside a false gravity pocket. "Undetectable unless you flew directly into its heart, Jace." "Grinned Eleron," he whispered. Eyes wide, they approached carefully. But the moment their ship entered orbit, a defense system activated. A massive ring of lights formed in the sky, and a voice neither human nor Gyran asked a question. "Do you come as conquerors, or as those who were conquered?" Jace answered, voice calm, "Neither. We come as two hearts, looking for a home." There was a long silence. Then the lights dimmed, and a path opened through the clouds, glowing softly like a welcome. As they descended, the world below revealed itself: forests of violet trees, rivers of light, cities carved into mountains, and creatures that looked part human, part Gyran, living peacefully together. Thalira leaned into Jace, her eyes full of tears. "We found it," she whispered. "A place that doesn't care where we come from." Their ship touched down on a landing platform built from crystal and stone, soft music playing from the wind. No guards, no weapons, only open gates. They had reached the edge of everything they knew, and crossed into the beginning of something new. The price of peace, the ground beneath their feet, felt alive, soft and warm, like a heartbeat, as if the planet itself was breathing. Jace looked around in wonder. Trees glowing with colors he'd never seen, leaves whispering to each other in a language made of wind and light. Thalira stood beside him, her fingers brushing through tall silver grass, a peaceful smile on her face for the first time in days. But peace didn't come freely. As they walked beyond the crystal gates, figures stepped from the tree stall, elegant, not fully human, not fully Gyran, but something in between. They wore robes grown from living vines, and their eyes shimmered with stars. Silent, observant, ageless, one stepped forward, a woman whose face seemed to shift between species. Her voice soft and layered. You carry the war inside you. Jace raised his hand slowly. We've come with nothing but hope. She tilted her head. Hope is rare, but also dangerous. Thalira spoke next, her voice clear. We ran. From war, we didn't bring it here. The woman turned, and the others stepped aside, revealing a wide path carved into a glowing canyon, then walk through memory. And let the planet decide. They followed the path in silence, deeper into a forest where trees bent to form arches, and light poured through like liquid. At the end stood a dome of smooth stone, pulsing faintly. A doorway slid open without a sound, and a voice soft but powerful welcomed them. Place your hands together on the stone. It said, if your bond is real, Eleron will let you stay, but you must first walk the memory of pain. Jace and Thalira exchanged a glance, then touched the stone together. In an instant, the world disappeared. Jace stood alone in a battlefield. He knew to well blood in the mud, fire in the sky, screams behind every tree. He turned and saw himself young, angry, full of hate, holding a rifle over a Gyran child's finger on the trigger. He remembered this moment. The fear, the orders, the silence before he lowered his gun. He stepped forward, reached for the younger version of himself, and whispered, You were right to stop. The memory shattered, and light pulled him back. Thalira stood in her own nightmare aboard her father's warship, watching human prisoners kneel, bound and shaking. She remembered the command to execute them, and how her hand trembled when she refused. Her father's voice echoed through the chamber. Your mercy will destroy you. She looked up into his eyes and whispered. No, it saved me. The scene faded, and she gasped as the dome faded around them. They stood together again, both shaking, both silent. The soft voice returned. You have walked your pain, and you did not run. Suddenly, the stone beneath them glowed brighter, and a door slid open at the far end of the chamber, leading into a garden unlike any other. Here, the plants responded to breath, colors shifting with emotion. Creatures that had no names watched them curiously but without fear. A council of Alaran's caretakers waited in the Centaura circle of 9, each of different descent, each more expression than flesh. You are welcome, the one in the center said. But peace demands a price. Jay stepped forward. What price? The caretaker answered, You must give up your names, your past loyalties, your bloodlines, and swear to protect this planet without ever calling for help from Earth or Gyran fleets. Thalira's voice trembled slightly. And if war comes for us again, then you fight alone or die as one. The voice said gently, No flags, no backup, no revenge. Silence hung heavy between them. Jace took Thalira's hand. I never wanted to fight again. Not if I could hold her instead. Thalira smiled softly, and I'd rather lose everything than lose him. They both stepped forward and knelt together before the council. We accept, they said as one. The garden glowed brighter, and a strange wind blew through the air, wrapping around them like silk. The voice spoke again, now full of warmth. Then rise, not as human or Gyran, but as keepers of Alaran. Their pasts melted away behind them, but not forgotten, only released. From that moment, they belonged to no world but this one, a new life, a new bond, built not from blood or duty, but love and courage. As they turned to leave the chamber, the stars above Alaran pulsed one sand far beyond. In distant space, Earth and Gyran ships raced toward their signal. But they would find nothing but silence and a message carved into the starlight. They are no longer yours to chase. The last pursuit, asterisk the stars above, Alarin blinked in warning. Soft at first, then faster, sharper, like a heartbeat skipping in fear. Jace stood on the edge of the cliff outside their new home, watching the sky change colors. The birds no longer singing, the wind now still. Behind him, Thalira felt it too. A pressure in the air. Like thunder hiding inside sunlight, distant, but coming closer with purpose. "They've found us," she whispered. Jace nodded slowly. Not just one fleet, both, high above. Two shadows tore through the void, Earth's command ships glowing. In white steel and Gyron war cruisers, pulsing with blood-red energy. They hadn't come to talk. Inside the sanctuary, the council gathered, their robes dimming, their faces unreadable. "You knew this might happen," the lead caretaker said. Voice calm but cold. "Aileron protects peace, not war." Jace stepped forward, hands clenched. "Give us one chance to speak to them, to stop this." Thalira joined him, eyes fierce. "We'll go alone." The council hesitated, then opened a gate to the sky. Revealing a thin path of light stretching into orbit, they entered a vessel unlike anything before, a ship grown from trees and crystal. Guided by will, not wires, as it rose into the stars, Aileron whispered around them. "Speak your truth, but do not lie. This world listens." The vessel reached orbit in silence. Yet chaos swirled outside. Human ships locked their weapons. Scanners painting targets across the Jiren fleet. Jiren destroyers answered with growls of engines and shields raised like claws. War was one trigger away. Jace opened a wide broadcast. Standing side by side with Thalira, the stars spinning behind them. "This is Jace Thorn," he said, voice strong. "Once soldier of Earth, now guardian of peace. This is Thalira," she continued. "Princess of Jiren blood, no longer slave to its throne." "We found a world that does not care who we were," Jace said, "only who we choose to be." "But you," Thalira added, "you chase us still, afraid of what love between enemies might mean for the future." "Look at us," Jace said, pulling her hand into his. "We did not run to hide. We ran to show there is another way." The broadcast ended, their signal rippling through every ship, playing on every screen, leaving every officer silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one Gyron captain broke ranks and launched a torpedo. "No," Thalira gasped, stepping forward. The projectile blazed across space, heading straight for their peaceful craft. Jace lunged, arms around her, shielding her body with his own. The torpedo struck the edge of their ship, lights swallowing the screen, silence roaring like thunder below. On Alarin, the sky flared in fire, then dimmed again, inside the ship. Smoke filled the chamber, and Jace lay broken, chest scorched, breath shallow. Thalira cried out, pulling him close, her tears glowing, dripping onto his skin. The ship shuddered and fell, dropping back toward the planet, Aileron's vines reaching up like hands to catch it. The world cradled them gently, the forest humming with sorrow, back in the sanctuary. The caretakers stood in silence, eyes closed, listening to the pain rising in the roots of the trees. A single pulse ran through the planet, then into the skies. A ring of light exploded outward, spreading across space, striking both fleets at once, not with weapons, but with truth. Every human officer, every Jiren pilot, saw visions in their minds, Jace shielding Thalira, Thalira holding him as the ship burned. They felt the fear, the love, the loss, the hope, and they heard a voice, soft and endless, speaking in all tongues. Let them go, one by one, weapons powered down. Ships turned, engines quieted. Back on Alarin, Thalira sat beside Jace's resting body, her hand in his, whispering every memory they had lived, every dream they had shared. The caretakers approached, laying their hands upon his chest, the vines glowing brighter. Drawing in light from the world itself, breath returned slowly, shallow at first, then stronger. His fingers moved, and Thalira wept. When he opened his eyes, she smiled through her tears. "You're still mine," she whispered. "And you're still worth dying for," he replied, voice soft but alive. The caretakers spoke together. "The war has passed us by, and peace has been bought with your courage. Ships left orbit, one by one, not in defeat, but in silence, as if ashamed of what they nearly destroyed. Eleron had chosen them, and for the first time in galactic history, to lovers, hunted, wounded, betrayed had changed the course of stars without firing a single shot. Where love grows, rain fell gently across the hills of Eleron. Not cold, not heavy, but warm. Like the sky itself was washing away the pain of war. Jace stood beneath a wide, blossom tree, its roots glowing under his bare feet, watching the morning sun break through clouds that had never known fire. His body still ached, but it no longer hurt. The scars remained, but they were no longer open. Beside him, Thalira walked slowly, her fingers brushing through tall grass that hummed with music when touched, her silver skin reflecting soft light, her steps lighter than ever before. They reached the edge of a shallow lake where colors danced across the surface like paint in motion, and sat together without words behind them. The sanctuary had become something new. The garden had grown roots spreading outward, vines climbing toward stars and pathways stretching into the unknown. Others had begun to arrive, not in warships, but in small craft, marked with no flags, no colors of empire. Only silence and white banners woven by hand. Humans with tired eyes, Girans with folded claws, couples, families. Orphans, all of them looking for what Jace and Thalira had already found. Peace was not given. It had to be grown, like a seed pressed into scarred soil. Watered with tears, guarded with truth. Thalira leaned her head on Jace's shoulder, her voice soft. "They brought gifts this morning, books, seeds, and a violin." Jace smiled. "Do they know how to play it?" "No," she replied, "but they want to learn." They sat for hours, saying nothing more, just watching Eleron breathe, feeling time slow down until hours felt like moments. By evening, a new path had appeared, grown by the planet itself, leading toward the crystal hills beyond the forest. A young girl, half Skyran, half human, walked it barefoot, holding a message carved into wood, her eyes wide with hope. She approached Jace and Thalira and bowed slightly. "The council says, this is for you." Thalira read it first, her fingers trembling, then passed it to Jace. "The keepers of peace shall raise the first light." It read, "A new fire that does not burn, but warms the stars." He looked at her, confused. "What does that mean?" Thalira placed his hand gently on her stomach, her eyes glowing. It took him a moment. Then he understood. His lips parted, and all he could say was, "We." She nodded slowly, tears forming. "Eleron has accepted us fully, and life has answered." Jace pulled her close, heart racing. "Then this world won't just be a refuge. Will be our beginning." As night fell, fires were lit across the valleys, not for war, not for warning, but for celebration. Songs in languages old and new echoed across the cliffs, laughter rising into the air, children chasing glowing insects through flower fields that had never known sorrow. Jace and Thalira stood on a hilltop, hand in hand, as the people of Eleron gathered below, raising their voices in unity. No throne, no army, no symbol of dominance, only the quiet power of connection from space. The planet glowed slightly, brighter than it had before. It wasn't a beacon, it was a promise that not all who flee are cowards, that not all who fall in love across lines are traitors, and that sometimes the strongest revolution begins not with a blade, but with two hands holding each other in the dark. As the stars turned above and the universe watched in silence, a garden bloomed in a corner of the galaxy that once screamed with war, and in its heart stood to people. No longer hunted, no longer divided, but whole.